We are going to be talking about the Liverpool situation a little bit later on. Obviously, a lot of talk about the safety of the fans, and we'll also talk a bit about the game as well. That's with Tony Evans just after 8. So if you've got anything Liverpool related that you'd like to get off your chest, now would be a good time to get involved with us on that one. And loads more to bring you through as well. So may as well start with the newspaper. It's going to start with the Irish Independent this morning, and the news came through yesterday that Connacht are also in the hunt for a new coach. Thanks very much. They pulled the plug on the Keane regime. A few interesting nuggets here from Rory O'Connor on this. Keane had been a somewhat controversial figure during his stint, commenting frequently about the limitations of a squad that still contains plenty of figures from the 2016 league-winning campaign. Those utterances, in which the coach questioned his team's skills and character, did not go down well in the dressing room. Coach comes in and says, character's not great, skills aren't great. How's that going to go down in the dressing room?
Well, not too well.
Somebody likened it to Brian Clough at Leeds. Take your medals and throw them in the effing bin.
Well, we all know the way that ended, don't we?
Yeah.
So not.
Didn't work. Didn't work for Kieran Keane either, apparently. Like, in the aftermath of situations like this, when somebody's out, information comes out, and you always have to be a little bit wary. You definitely kind of need to treat them with a bit of distance and kind of see, okay, so the manager is gone and there's been a reason for that. But, you know, we heard that he was big on details for the big games, but less so on the smaller games. And we saw at the weekend, obviously, they killed Leinster. They did well in a couple of the other big games against the Irish provinces, but they lost back-to-back against Zebre, which, you know, they're the worst team in Europe, so you can't be doing that. You always have sympathy for a coach who gets kicked out after one season. But sometimes if the fit is wrong...
He had big boots to fill, though, didn't he? You know, in terms of going in there, but... I've had managers with the opposite way, funny enough, in terms of would put all their focus into the lesser teams. And then I actually said this to Sean Dyche last week when I was over in Burnley, in terms of where he is at his best, I think, is that he makes his players feel invincible. So even when they're going and playing the big teams, so we've seen it this year, their record against the top teams has been very, very good.
Yeah.
When I've had certain managers, when you've played against the top team, going into the game, you're thinking, my manager doesn't even believe we're going to get a result out of this.
That doesn't help, does it? Like, I can see a part of, if you're a manager and you've got a limited amount of time, is that you're going to focus on the games you can win, and the games you can't win, you're kind of going, look, this is just a free shot, go out and enjoy yourselves. But that obviously transmits itself to the players.
Yeah, players pick up on detail very, very quickly. So if the preparations for certain games are different in any way, then you're thinking, well, why?
Yeah.
Why are we preparing different for Man United than we did for Bolton?
Yeah.
You know, and players kind of soak that up, and
it'd be nice if we could actually
maybe gives you an excuse collectively. But there's nothing worse than going out on a football pitch or any pitch, any sport, any environment where you're thinking your coach doesn't really believe you can do something today.
Yeah, and like, I can see why some coaches come in and challenge a group and say, come on, you guys need to improve. But like, the dressing rooms have changed to the point where you can't just come in and insult people anymore.
No, far from it. Far from it. And I think this is because I've done my coaching licenses, badges, different in different sports, obviously, but it's one aspect that they don't really teach you about. And some of the best managers I've had, that's been part of their makeup and part of the reason they've had a lot of success, is because how they can manage a group of grown men to buy into something. Whereas, all right, tactically, the best in the world, Pep Guardiola's, they're brilliant the way they see things, but in the main, I don't think there's a hell of a lot of difference tactically between the vast majority of managers.
Yeah.
Because once you do all the courses, once you watch 1,000 games, or you're part of 1,000 games, or you see everything, don't you?
You're supposed to be able to, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. But in terms of managing a group, it's a different skill set, isn't it?
Totally. Let's just play you this. It's Andy Dunn speaking last night on the radio about Kieran Keane.
When a guy gets the boot effectively so soon into a 3-year contract, I would have thought the playing staff and key senior personnel would have been consulted, I'd imagine, and in the absence of a huge defence, there's usually a tough decision made early on. I note the cynic in me notes that Willie Ruan described him as the perfect fit last year, going into a 3-year contract.
Yeah.
But obviously most people who are going to make those decisions are going to describe their first choice as a perfect fit. But I think it's become apparent. I I think the results do matter as well. I think they're kind of slightly glossing over while results aren't the most important thing. I think ultimately what he was trying to achieve on the field, he wasn't able to get that message across clearly to the playing group.
Yeah. That's the thing. Your initial reaction when somebody gets taken out after a year is like, oh, that's not enough time. But actually, it's probably the right decision if the fit is wrong. It's like, you know.
Yeah, from the outside it looks harsh, doesn't it? Because we're all thinking, okay, he's got his 3-year deal. But if internally players, the hierarchy, are seeing something this isn't progressing, this is antagonistic, this isn't happening for whatever reason, what's the point in persevering?
No, it's true. If the wrong person is in the wrong job, you're just wasting another year. Can we just get the Indo back up there? There's 2 other stories we just need to talk briefly about here. One of them is obviously the Rovers celebrations last night from a 3-0 win against Cork. And again, this is the opposite side of the thing, like where clubs could easily have sacked somebody like Stephen Bradley for the run that they're on and, you know, the money and the investment that they've made. But ultimately, if you are going to put your faith in a young manager, then you have to accept that the learning curve is really steep and there's going to be a long, tricky period. And you hope at the end of that, you come out with a manager who then has the experience to deal with situations like 5-game streak with no wins.
Yeah, he's had a tough few weeks, Stephen Bradley, the games, and it's a different type of model. And because they've been quite vocal about the way they're going and trying to trim the wage bill, trying to go and focus on the youth side of things, and I think that's very much in place at Shamrock Rovers. There's obviously going to be ups and downs.
Yeah.
I think it was 6 without a win, wasn't it, going into this game? So that's a big, big win. But you're right, in terms of a long-term project, they've no guarantees to be in those European places at the end of this season. And if they don't finish in that top 4, does that mean he should be sacked? So we're talking about Connacht Rugby in terms of internally what's going on. Is the development happening underneath that? Well, at Shamrock Rovers, I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
I don't know that, but I would bet my bottom dollar internally things are going in the right direction.
And if they feel he's the right person for the job but the results aren't going, then you have to have patience. Whereas with Connacht, they felt that they had the wrong person in the job and that they weren't going to fix things. So like, unless Rovers feel the same way that the hierarchy in Connacht / the IRFU did, then you can see why they would make the decision. But like, rather than do that, I think you've got to stick with them. And then the only other story there on the back of the Indo is IRFU still hoping to deliver Carbery to Ulster's McFarland. So obviously Ulster named their new coach yesterday. Forced into it a bit prematurely, it seems. Des Berry at the Herald was saying that he thought it was going to be Dan McFarland, and then lo and behold, 3 hours later, Ulster were announcing Dan McFarland as their new head coach. Scotland were saying, yeah, he can join in January, and Ulster and a couple of other people were like, no, he's going to be here for the start of the season. So a few details still in the wash in that one, and I presume he's going to be there at the start of the season, or at least for pre-season. But apparently Joe Schmidt was sitting down with Joey Carbery yesterday to convince him that maybe starting at number 10 for Ulster was right for his future.
He needs to go and get playing, doesn't he? Like, it's simple as that, because he's, you know, I wouldn't know him that well, but he's not going to develop playing second fiddle to Johnny Sexton. So if there's some kind of manoeuvring, he's got to go and play, isn't he?
I think that they could probably play a load of games at Leinster.
Well, is there enough?
I think it's probably just about the right amount. And also, it seems like Leinster have one of the best coaching tickets in the world at the moment, where Stuart Lancaster is free to be a head coach and do all the coaching, and is clearly getting the best out of a very talented bunch. So if you think of the team that Lancaster's had, like 3 first-choice back rowers disappear from selection. Josh van der Fleer, who was like, oh, nailed on, going to be Ireland's player of the year, out for the season. Sean O'Brien, best form of his life after the Lions, out for the season, and Jamie Heaslip retired. But the back row hasn't missed a beat. Jack Conan out, unavailable. Jordy Murphy slots in. And they even managed to get Scott Fardy back to being a back row again, despite the fact that they thought he was a second row. So the level of coaching is insanely good. And
ultimately you need game time then to prove that and to bring that on a notch, because you can do all you want in training and in the gym and develop and your clips and with the analysts, whatever it is, but then you need to go and test yourself in that competitive environment. And when it comes to the crunch, obviously Johnny Sexton's going to be the call. He
will, yeah. I mean, Sexton plays very few games for Leinster compared to some of the other positions, and some of the other players. Like the IRFU definitely keep him in kid gloves comparatively. So there would be a lot of league games, but there's also every game that they rest Rob Kearney, because Leinster see Carbery as a 15.
Do they?
Yeah, so that they want ultimately to have a 10 and a 15 who are game breakers and who are playmakers. The way that New Zealand have, they're thinking, what's the very best team that we can ever be? And you have 2 players in key positions, 10 and 15, who are into the latter stages of their careers, and they're like, well, we've had this kid. His dad works for Leinster, like has been a Leinster development coach for ages.
Yeah,
like I don't know.
It's a tricky position for him, isn't it?
Yeah, because what do you do when Joe Schmidt says, I want you to go?
I know, it's very, very
Are you going to
tricky.
give up on your World Cup dreams? Because, like, it's not... I'm sure it's not like a... I'm sure there's no intentional... Well, if you don't go, you know, don't try me here. But, like, I don't know how explicit that is. But certainly you would feel, okay, I'm kind of getting forced into this.
It's uneasy. It's not
what
a
do
nice,
I do?
It's not a nice scenario for him to be in, is it?
No, I wouldn't fancy it. But like, I don't know. I just hope they do the right thing by him. Right, let's move on to the Examiner next. So the launches are starting to happen, which means the photo calls are starting to happen properly, and it's a couple of wolfhounds. Are they Irish wolfhounds, or are they a cross between a red setter and a wolfhound? You know your dogs.
Does it look? I think it's wolfhound, isn't it?
Is it? Yeah, they look like wolfhounds. Yeah. The start of summer and championship fills the horizon. May Day. It is May Day. Oh, yeah. Why are we working today? I thought it was supposed to be a bank holiday. Workers of the world unite. Come on. Who brought us in today? It's Tommy. Yeah. Yeah. So you're a dog man, are you?
I am a dog man. Yeah.
What do you have?
I have a cockapoo.
What are they like?
Why did you stutter?
A cockapoo. They're good swimmers, apparently, are they?
He wouldn't be a great swimmer.
No.
He'd be a bit like me, being an adequate swimmer.
Yeah, okay. You'd float, maybe.
I have asthma, so they're crossbred for people with allergies.
Okay, right.
So we kind of stumbled upon them at a friend's house about 6 years ago. And I was like...
the first dog you didn't kind of...
Yeah, I went into their house, didn't have me inhaler, but it was okay. It didn't come out with like a rash.
Nice.
So it was, yeah. So,
do you always have bad asthma?
Only certain things kind of get it going. Wind, funny enough, if it's really windy, and animal hair, so horses, rabbits.
And so did it have an impact when you were playing?
When I was younger a little bit, yeah, certain games. Not bad. I never had bad asthma. I've never been hospitalised. It was just always kept under tabs with the usual inhalers. Nowadays
you'd use it as an excuse to like, I've got a TUE, thanks very much. Supercharged.
No, I'm not that way inclined.
But your doctor would be here. Look, you just need this for your asthma. Do you know what I mean?
Would it benefit my golf?
Oh, but
I wouldn't be able to live with myself. I can beat Dave McIntyre anyway.
Definitely wouldn't benefit your golf. It'll make you a little bit twitchy.
Yeah, no, I would leave that.
Oh, there's Buster on screen. There you go.
Oh my God.
Oh, that is cute.
There's Buster.
And he didn't even shit on the floor. Very well trained.
He's well behaved. He's a house dog.
Yeah, a house dog, whatever. Not an office dog. He's like, oh, this looks not like my house at all. Yeah, so Donald O'Grady is saying that the April close down has been a disaster for the promotion of hurling. And then the Jurgen Klopp story is coming up. We'll talk a bit more with Tony Evans about this in about 20 minutes' time, but like, it's not good, right? It's in all the newspapers, and everybody's wondering, it's the week of the biggest game of your career at Liverpool. Let's stress, at Liverpool.
Yeah.
And suddenly your most trusted lieutenant, and it looked like best buddy for 20 years, is no longer part of your coaching team. What are the players thinking?
Worried. Maybe they know something we don't know. So when it broke, first thing I think was personal reasons, family, health. I didn't even think until probably last night, has something gone on between them?
Yeah.
That's meant they've had to go and go, look, we need this little break to just settle things down. As a player, they may well have been told something. If it is family related and if it is along those lines, then
everybody's fine.
I think it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be fine. Look, the role of an assistant manager, and I think you've seen it with Buvac, with Klopp, in terms of calming him down, good cop, bad cop,
yeah.
You know, fire ice, whatever way you want to put it. They're supposed to complement each other. And I've no doubts that they do complement each other. I think it's a little bit derogatory towards Klopp, the way they're coming out with it. Well, he's the brains behind the operation.
That was his nickname. Like, yeah. But that doesn't necessarily mean he was actually the brains.
Exactly.
Sometimes nicknames are just nicknames.
A little bit misleading, but it's not good. It really isn't good in terms of on the eve of the Champions League semi-final, just to change that whole dynamic and create a little bit of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And even for Klopp. So if we go on to tomorrow night, and if Roma get a goal, an early goal, there's just that assurance.
He looks around and his buddy is sitting
where's
there.
your mate?
Yeah.
And it's not just an assistant that you've been working with. 17 years they've been together, and that's before they played together as well at Mines.
Players are also a little bit superstitious, as you talked about earlier, giving up playing golf. Like, if there are any players in the dressing room who had like a proper personal relationship with him, they come in from half time tomorrow and normally they would do something or chat to him and he's gone. It's like, ugh, this isn't right.
Klopp's not the type of manager, is he, that you can't approach, I'd imagine, as a player. So certain managers, you always tend to go to the coaching staff, the coach, the assistant manager, fitness coach as well.
To get stuff done.
Yeah, and you're right. There is an element of superstition in a lot of players. So whether that's pre-match warm-up where they do a certain drill with Buvac, it's just not what they need right now. And especially if they go a goal down in the opening 10, 15 minutes.
Which, let's face it, they probably will.
Well, it's probably not going to go exactly to plan. Look, they're going to go through, in my opinion, probably relatively easily. But you do feel there's going to be a little bit of a scare at some stage.
Yeah. All right, we'll come back to that a good bit later on. So let's go back to the Irish Times. I skipped this one, sorry about that. Here it is on the Irish Times. We don't have the Irish Times on screen, so here you go. There's a bunch of different stories here. They are obviously also leading with tonight's game, which is the Bayern-Real Madrid game. Heinkes calls for Bayern efficiency. I mean, you know.
What else do you expect?
Like, is he playing with us? Is he like subverting our expectations for... so Liverpool assistant Buvac steps down for the season. There is a sense that they've had rows in the past and they've patched it up and it might just be a temporary thing as opposed to for good. And then O'Neill says Christie case shows racism still an issue for the game. This is at an event yesterday for Show Racism the Red Card. Colin Bell, the Ireland women's manager, O'Neill and Catherine Zappone, the Minister for Children, were at St Aidan's in Dublin yesterday. And it was the first opportunity anybody had to talk to Martin O'Neill about the Cyrus Christie situation. And the Cyrus Christie situation, probably we should have made a much bigger deal out of it, and yet you kind of don't want to make too much of a big deal out of it because you hope that it's just 2 or 3 people, and by giving them attention for the stuff that they're doing, they're actually winning. And it's hard to kind of find the balance, but then you realise this is happening so much that, like, the re-emergence of racism as something that people are comfortable showing in public has happened almost overnight and imperceptibly. I would say primarily because Trump and Brexit have allowed it to come out when it was clearly there all the time. But what's happened to Cyrus Christie is absolutely disgusting. And, like, it makes no sense.
Nonsensical, it really is. And I have to be honest, I'd heard the headlines and I'd seen little snippets, and obviously it's been flagged up today more so because Martin's obviously been asked about it and commented on it. Because I'm not on social media, the first time I seen the actual tweets was this morning when I came in here. I couldn't believe what I seen. And to have to go through that in this day and age is just sickening, absolutely sickening. And he's had to deal with it before. There's been this level of abuse directed at Cyrus Christie before, which, look, it's something that doesn't sit well with me, and it's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. You would hope that the cops in England are on it, and you would hope that Twitter are on it properly, but, like, he's calling Twitter out as well, and it's just grotesque. How well do they marshal things like that, and what are the repercussions? Do you know? There might be an account suspended eventually. Suspended, that's it. Not as in good luck, see you later. Yeah, I mean, some of them some of them do end up getting closed down, but ultimately you should go to prison for that kind of stuff. Like, it's at that level where you kind of think, well, so I don't know. You hope that sooner rather than later it gets dealt with, but like, it must have an impact on Cyrus Christie, and fair play to him for actually standing up, and like, the fact that he decided to draw attention to it probably means that actually we should have done more about it, and we should publicly do more to support it, because if somebody is making that effort, you hope that they don't feel like they're being left alone. So look, Cyrus Christie's a bit of a hero, and very much so. Hopefully some good comes out of this. So the Times of Ireland, we have a screen grab of their lead stories for you on the website this morning.
Ulster McFarland is new coach. Johan van Graan says they aim to be the best team in the world. Pro 14 set for a windfall after a fresh TV deal. This is the news that the Pro 14 is going to double its money from the new TV rights deal. Most of it coming from Air and coming from Premier Sports in the UK. So a big deal for Pro 14, hopefully meaning that there'll be some more superstars coming to this part of the world. And then Keane sacked by Connacht after 1 year. Kieran Keane is out at the sports ground. So, what have you got for us?
Okay, we'll kick off with the Herald. So, again, it's about Klopp, finish it off, make sure we get the job done. And another big one is Rangers, the worst side ever. So, Martin O'Neill is talking a little bit about Steven Gerrard and whether he's going to take that job. And we all seen the Old Firm on Sunday. Oh, I had it on the background. I wasn't particularly watching it, which says a lot about...
It does, doesn't it?
Old Firms, because you would have been glued into it years ago, wouldn't you? Whereas you half expected some kind of a result like that, 3-4, you know? And it's just they're so far behind the Rangers.
He's joking a bit when he says that. It's like,
he is tongue in cheek, but
but he's not really either. He's like enjoying every second of it.
You're going to take that job.
Sticking the
I'm
knife
a bit
in.
torn on the whole Steven Gerrard. You know, where he should go, if he should go, is it now? I've kind of gone to and fro over the last couple of days. I just think it's not the easy option. I think I would prefer him to take a job like that than a championship job, which we've seen 3, 6, 9 months, unless it's right, you're out.
Yeah.
Time and time again, we've seen managers like that.
There are some good jobs in the championship though. Like the Wolves job at the right time would have been one of the dream jobs. It turns out somebody had to take a bit of a risk.
Yeah, but just because, look, I know they're probably a little bit more in terms of the finances that have been spent, but there's teams that have spent and spent and spent in that championship.
I got nowhere.
Yeah, and managers have gone, and you're left with that group of players that manager signed. Derby being a prime example. 3-4 managers in the last 3-4 years, and you're left with this group of 25, 30 players on fortunes for championship level. They're not going to leave. There's no room to manoeuvre. So I just think in terms of managing a big club, it would be a big club, imprinting your style and showing us what you would be about as a manager. But of course, there comes an element of risk, because unless he gets a lot closer to Celtic, then it's probably going to be deemed as failure.
Yeah.
So it's a big risk on his part, because ultimately, if he continues on the path he's on at the moment, 18s, maybe 23s, learning the academy, maybe goes and has a year being an assistant manager for England, you know, to just to branch out a little bit, see a different part of the game,
Work with grown-ups.
Yeah.
Then
naturally you would feel he might get a bit of successor to Jurgen Klopp, but maybe he's just getting a little bit of itchy feet.
Yeah, like if I was Liverpool, I would say, no way, you cannot be the successor to Jurgen Klopp unless you've gone off and managed successfully in Germany, or if you've gone and done something that's like, ooh, we understand you now are plugged into European football. Like, what's your scouting network? What scouts do you trust?
Exactly.
How do you trust them? Like, what are the traits that you look for in a scout over a period of time to deliver a certain type of player to you that fits your system? And what is your system, by the way? How do you decide that? Because we had Daniel Harris on yesterday, and he made the point that, like, Steven Gerrard's brilliance was a force of personality. It wasn't tactical genius. He wasn't like, he made the comparison with Scholes, where Ferdinand said Scholes' passes told you where to go.
Yeah.
With Steven Gerrard, it was, I'm going to do this.
He's right at Rovers, wasn't he?
Yeah. Not necessarily a transferable skill to management.
Yeah.
You can't slap them on the arse and go, off you go there and win the game.
I said this to you earlier, and I've mentioned this before, about when I was at MK Dons, and I think I just left, and there was a little bit of talk of Ryan Giggs taking over. There's been talk of Steven Gerrard actually as well. And my instant feeling on that is, what does Steven Gerrard and Ryan Giggs know about how a League One player's mind works? You know, in terms of days off, family problems, tactically being able to take that thing on board. And like what you were saying about Steven Gerrard, some of the top players, some, I'm not saying all, they cannot comprehend when a player can't do something. So when a keep ball session breaks down, or they're trying to get some kind of information across, you got to revisit it. There's a reason why players play at certain levels. It's the consistency that you're able to reproduce.
Yeah.
That, like golf, I can hit an unbelievable shot. I can't do it 5 times in a row.
Yeah.
You know, and that's similar to Championship, League One. That's the issue. And then how do you manage that group? And you will have a similar issue going to Rangers because that squad is nowhere near it.
Yeah.
Nowhere near it.
Like, which always makes me look at the successful managers at the moment and how so few of them were really world-class players. Like, how so few of them were really, really world-class players. Obviously, like, Guardiola was a good player in an amazing team.
Yeah.
And maybe he was underrated as a player. I don't know. Conte was one of those players who obviously had a brilliant career. But the Mourinhos, the Wengers, those players who kind of had okay careers were definitely able, at some stage in their career, to find players who weren't already world class and turn them into much better. Now, obviously, Mourinho seems to have lost that ability, like, and can only shop in the best, most expensive shops in the world. I don't know, just listening to Dyche the other day, right? You got the sense that, like, I don't think Sean Dyche would be intimidated working with any player, but actually can also spot value and can bring players through and can communicate with them in a way that goes, like, look, this team that we're playing today, they're just another team.
Yeah, on a humane level. But I would be interested to see how Pep dealt with a League One team. I do think he'd improve them, but I just wonder how frustrated he would get. You know, who was I speaking to? I was speaking to Lee Carsley actually about playing. He was coaching the 21s at the time, and from when he went from Birmingham, he was just like, the level that he was dealing with in terms of the players' ability was phenomenal. You're constantly testing yourself in terms of, I need to test them.
Yeah.
I need to come up with things to test them. Whereas it would be the other way around. Guardiola left and went to an average Premier League team where, like, he took over a team that were very, very direct, for instance. How would he sacrifice his philosophy, or would he think, no, I'm persevering with the way I want to play? You can imagine just pulling his very little stubbly hair out, couldn't you?
Yeah, he would persevere, wouldn't he?
I think so, yeah, because that's him.
And like, you would, I presume there are players at that level who can do what he wants. Like, there's a Wes there that you just need to find.
Tap into.
Yeah.
Unearth it.
I want to play you this video. It's from last night. Pat Nevin was in the back page in Fitzborough last night. Here he is talking about the possibility of Steven Gerrard becoming Rangers manager. So it's his thoughts on the same issue that we've just been talking about there.
What do you think? Personally, think he should take it? Do you think he will take it?
All that I'm hearing about Steven Gerrard is that he is likely to take this job at Rangers, and he has been offered it by Rangers. I'm actually quite amazed that he's going to take it. Maybe because I've got more of a foot in. I live in Scotland still, and I see the Scottish game quite a lot, and I know what the pressure's like up there for the manager of Celtic or Rangers if you're not in first place. Now, if you can walk into management as a former player in your first job, and it can work. I mean, I played against Kenny Douglas first year as Liverpool manager, player manager. He wins the league and he scores the winning goal. And he did it. He did it at Chelsea, and I was playing down that day. It was very upsetting. Anyway, but it can work, and we know Souness did a very good job up at Rangers. It always seems to involve Liverpool people, this, and that's absolutely fine as well. But at that time, they had more money than everyone else. He could go and get the best of the English players to come up and buy them and bring them up there. You look at when it works the other way, when John Barnes went up to Celtic and everything wasn't in place. Now, everybody, a lot of Celtic, I'm sure there's the odd Celtic fan in here tonight, many Celtic fans listening tonight. And the story is John Barnes is an absolute stinker. Have a wee look at that guy's record. It's actually perfectly good. He had one real terrible game against Inverness Cali Thistle, but he's now considered a complete and utter nightmare of a Celtic manager. In the history of Celtic managers, he's got the 4th best record of wins percentage in the history of Celtic managers, and they've had a few good managers, I can tell you. So if you make, the simple thing is, if you make a mistake up there, even if you're Stevie G and you go to Rangers and it goes wrong, and by the way, everything's not perfect in the background at that club, they are miles and miles and miles behind Celtic. You could have your fledgling career absolutely chopped off. And the other night there on Match of the Day, you may have heard it was suggested by Alan Shearer that it's a no-brainer. Believe me, it's a brainer. You need to think about this. You seriously need to think about this.
That's a very good point. I hadn't thought of the John Barnes example. Everybody goes, oh, it's win-win, right? Go up there, and if it doesn't work, everybody goes, sure, it wasn't going to work anyway. But actually, I mean,
that was a different era as well, wasn't it? We just spoke about the Old Firm on Sunday. There's so much making up to do. I have to be honest, I am torn on it. I'm not categorically in one camp or the other.
Yeah.
I am a little bit, and I'm sure he's a bit like that.
No doubt. Also, you got to live in Glasgow. No thanks. What's next?
We're at the Sun. We have got, what have we got? Terry McDermott is selling his 3 European Cup medals. And also Sunderland, new manager, new takeover, drastically needed. Ellis Short, been in charge 9 years, wasted so much money at that place. Kevin Phillips getting linked with that job. It'd be interesting to see who gets it, because that's, I think you were chatting there, weren't you, about?
I think that's a good job now.
Yeah, well,
This
if
is as low as it
it's
goes.
levelled out, and
Well, there's no debt anymore. He's wiped out the debt, so you can literally walk in and sack Jack Rodwell and say, okay,
you can't.
You can now, because like you can pay up, you can go into debt to get rid of Jack Rodwell and go. Anybody else, off you go. New day, new dawn. We've gone into debt to get rid of those bad players, but it's a tiny little bit of debt, and they'll sell enough season tickets. If you come in and go, Man City, we are the new Man City, and we need you the way the Man City fans showed up in 25,000, and they romped home that year, but we can only do it if we all get together.
It's shocking to see them the way they've gone. I done the first game of last season when they played Derby, and it finished 1-1, but before the game I said I wasn't quite sure whether their troubles had levelled out. Simon Grayson had took over. The recruitment in the summer was shocking. So I'm looking at him thinking, I think consolidation will be it. But Sunderland fans, no.
Straight back up.
Yeah. Well,
straight
that
back
didn't quite work out, did it? The Mirror, again, brain drain, talking again about Buvac's departure. And again, O'Neill making the quotes about Stephen Gerrard joining the worst Rangers team. No, sorry, that's the Star, is it?
Yeah, that's the start.
On to the Mirror, last one. Time's up for the Dubs. Hart believes this is the year the All-Ireland Kings will be beaten in the Championship. Not so sure about that, Mickey. And Klopp, again, covering all the back pages.
It passed a little bit without comment, but so Mickey Hart gave an interview to Keith Duggan early on in the year in the Irish Times, and he talked about Conor Callan scores a goal. I don't know if you remember the game now at this point, but it's like very early on in the match. Conor Callahan runs straight through the Tyrone defence, slaloms through and scores a goal, and Tyrone barely register a score in that first half and get absolutely annihilated by the Dubs. But in the interview, he says, I can't remember if it was like O'Callaghan was a bad agent or something, because basically O'Callaghan's man, even though he's the forward, the defender who was marking him had gone forward. And instead of tracking back to be like a defensive automaton, O'Callaghan waited in the forward line.
Yeah, so he cheats.
And got the ball.
Yeah.
And scored a goal. Mickey's like, wow, can't be doing that. It's like,
as in Conor Callahan can't be doing that?
Yeah.
But that's Dublin having trust, or there's obviously a licence there where we only want you to go so far back.
And understanding that maybe if you want to win games, you need forwards. Yeah. So Tyrone got wiped out in that one, and it'll be interesting to see what lessons they've learned from last year. But yeah, I can't see. I'd be interested to see Tyrone play Dublin again this year and see what happens.
Well, Dublin will win.
I would predict the same. And yeah, and for the good of football, that might not be the worst thing. Right, we've got some more Ray coming for you in just a minute. 2 quick texts for you. Lads, Sexton's not going to play for Ireland after the World Cup, I'd say, so hang tight, Joey. There'll be lots of time for you, says James Gill. I think Johnny Sexton could play rugby until he's 40. He's like,
how old is he now? 31?
I think he might be 33. I'll do a quick Google there. You chat amongst yourself for a second. Sexton
I can't say that. I'm with you. I can't say that. He's primed and gets looked after. Well, you've already mentioned the way they look after him. Leinster, that relationship with the IRFU.
He's 32. He'll be 33 in July.
But that's why, because Carbery's obviously, he's the long-term successor, obviously. But when you're in that position, I go back to when I was at Wolves, right? I was 20 at the time. I was captain of Wolves, and then they signed Paul Ince, Colin Cameron and Alex Ray. And I was like, oh dear. I nearly said something else there. And then you're thinking, all right, but they're thinking long-term, 20-year-old, blah, blah, but I just lost faith with it because I wasn't getting enough game time.
Yeah.
And you spoke about the coaching staff at Leinster. We didn't have that at Wolves.
Yeah. In retrospect, could you have stayed and fought for your place? That would have been the right thing to do.
I did stay they kept me under
how long?
contract for another 3-4 years.
Right, so you did stay too long.
Yeah, and they sucked the life out of me.
So the right thing to do for you would have been to get out.
Well, I tried, but because I was under contract, I signed a long-term contract. It was in comparison to those players and bigger players, I was on relative peanuts. So it was a very difficult period.
They just saw you at that point as depth, as opposed to actually
third, fourth choice in and around it. Whereas Carbery's obviously well past that.
Yeah.
But it's still like it's frustrating for him.
It must be. I do think that they've explained to him that they view him as somebody who is world class and who they're going to work into the team. And because of the way players get rested, so 1 week Carbery or 1 week Carney will get rested and 1 week Sexton will get rested and he'll play.
Is he as good as a 15?
Well, Leinster see him as like potentially a game-changing 15 from an Ireland perspective, like better than anybody we've ever had play there before, like with an attacking ability and a second player who can run the game. So all of a sudden, instead of having one out half, you've got effectively two out halves whenever the ball is in your possession. We haven't seen enough of him there because he gets injured too. Like he's had a couple of injuries this year for the first time too. So, I don't know. It's a really tricky situation.
It is, isn't it?
It's not nice.
No.
Right, OTB AM is brought to you this morning with Air, the home of Air Sport. Get amazing live sporting content free with Air Broadband. Big announcement coming from them in the next couple of days, apparently, about the Pro 14. That's all over the newspapers today, so you can expect that one to come through.